Jim Morrison was completely infatuated with Janis Joplin. She, on the other hand, wasn't interested. But that didn't dissuade him, and soon his fixation took a terrible turn. It's not necessary to be a rock and roll enthusiast to be familiar with Janis Joplin. Despite being taken far too soon, her songs with a unique voice continue to pop up in modern pop culture. She was born and reared in Port Arthur, Texas. Although she had a network of pals, they were all considered outsiders, and Joplin struggled growing up. She didn't get along with most of her peers at Thomas Jefferson High School, and she suffered for it, regularly being tormented. In her words, "I was a misfit. I thought, I painted, and I read." She needed to escape, and music was the first thing that gave her that opportunity. My dude. She met Bessie Smith, Ma Rainey, and led belly through her pals from high school. These were the musicians who first inspired her and sparked her interest in music. Janis Joplin graduated high school in 1960, just as the teenage counterculture was beginning to flourish. While attending the University of Texas at Austin, she performed with the Waller Creek Boys, a folk trio, and would hang out with the staff of the Texas Ranger, a college comedy magazine. However, it was evident she still didn't fit. At the start of 1963, she hitchhiked her way to San Francisco. The hub of the beatnik culture was now San Francisco. While Joplin engaged with other musicians, she also grew highly addicted on drink and psychotropic substances throughout this time. Her issues in San Francisco occurred not long after her arrival. In her first year, the authorities apprehended her for shoplifting. She became known as a speed freak very fast. She was obviously losing her composure. 2 years later, her regular substance use had left her skeletal and malnourished. Her pals dreaded what might happen if someone didn't interfere. After 2 years in San Francisco, Joplin's friends joined together to convince her to return to Port Arthur. She weighed just 88 pounds when she returned to her parents in the spring of 1965. She left her bohemian habits behind. She gave up her addictions and enrolled again at Lamar University. She was reconstructing her life. In the fall of 1965, Joplin's life looked significantly different than it had a year previous. She was engaged to a man with a steady career, and she was preparing her future wedding. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Not long after becoming engaged, her fiancé ended the romance, leaving Joplin alone once again. Joplin's chats with a mental social worker reveal that she saw 2 possible futures at this period, each with its own problems. She disliked being confined in Port Arthur, working as a secretary until she married and had a mother. Yet, she didn't see how she could return to a job as a professional musician and not relapse into her addictions. The joyful culture had continued to grow in San Francisco. Janis's buddy Chad Helms had established a career for himself as a concert producer and had become the manager of a new band, Big Brother and the Holding Company. However, they needed something to stand out, and Helms felt he knew just the voice. He dispatched Travis Rivers, a friend of his, to meet Joplin in Austin and return her to San Francisco. Rivers and Joplin shared a room when they got there, and she wanted him to swear that no one would ever take drugs there. It was a promise Rivers made, but not in good faith. One of Joplin's former bandmates, Dave Gatz, recalls being with her when she uncovered Rivers' betrayal. He'd accompanied her home from a rehearsal when they caught several of Rivers' buddies at their apartment about to use. Joplin lost it, sobbing and yelling, according to Gatz. Her fears looked to be coming true. It was almost impossible to separate her music from drugs. Over the next year or so, Janis Joplin began a time of touring with the band as well as indulging in a series of relationships. By early 1967, she was living with Country Joe McDonald of Country Joe and the Fish. Somewhere around this period, Big Brother and the Holding Company began to achieve significant success. There was a fantastic performance at the Terry Pop Festival, where Joplin's vocals astonished the crowd. Shortly after that, they launched their debut album. Capitalizing on their success, they launched their second album, Cheap Thrills, a year later in 1968. It achieved #1 on the charts and stayed there for 8 weeks. Janis Joplin was a sensation and she wanted more. Not long after the success of Cheap Thrills, she announced that she was leaving the band and she took guitarist Sam Andrew with her. With the other players, Joplin was the main focus of her new band, the Cosmic Blues Band. Only to go with her. Do you know why you're so well liked? By this point, Joplin had not only relapsed, her substance abuse was becoming out of control. Producers made an effort to keep her clean during the recording of her debut solo album, which came out later that year to modest reviews. In the summer of 1969, the single most significant music event of the 20th century was held. Woodstock, lasting 4 days. Joplin and her band performed, as did everyone else in the music industry at the time. She notified her band that they'd be performing at Woodstock as if it were just any other gig. Maybe she believed it would be. But as soon as she arrived in a chopper, she saw the importance of the situation. Unfortunately, it might have been too much for the 26-year-old junkie. As they sailed over the sizable throng that had assembled for the performance, Joplin grew anxious and excited. When they landed, she was eager to get on stage and perform, but there was a considerable wait for other musicians who were set to perform first. Left with too much time on her hands, Joplin went into her addictions. Somewhere after 2 a.m. on Sunday, August 17, 1969, Janis Joplin finally arrived on stage. Despite being highly inebriated, she managed to hold it together for her performance. Upon the documentary's publication and soundtrack for Woodstock in 1970, they didn't include Joplin's performance. This was at her demand because she wasn't happy with it. Joplin's decline started at Woodstock. Near the end of 1969, she made 2 appearances at Madison Square Garden, neither of which was trouble-free. During a Thanksgiving concert with the Rolling Stones, she performed a duet with Tina Turner. Her then publicist, Myra Friedman, said Joplin was out of control. With solo billing, she went back to the Garden in late December. She later informed the reporters that the audience was watching every note to see if she would succeed. The Cosmic Blues Band broke up at the end of 1969 with their performance at Madison Square Garden being their final. Joplin tried to clean up her act once more at the beginning of 1970. During her trip to Brazil, she abstained from alcohol and drugs. She also fell in love. Another American traveler who was seeing the world was David Niehaus. While he shared Joplin's ambition for an alternative lifestyle, he had little interest in drug culture. This was the independence that Joplin had been longing for a long time. Every piece of evidence points to her. One of the happiest times of her life was when on vacation in Brazil. It brought her a sense of liberation she hadn't experienced before. Unfortunately, it was a bliss that she couldn't hang on to. On getting back in the U.S., she reverted to her addictions almost immediately. Additionally, even though she made an effort to keep up a bond with Niehaus, it was unable to endure once she left the bubble that they had created in Brazil. Niehaus wanted Joplin to take a break from music so they could explore the world together, but she refused. Perhaps they may have lived if this was the only concern. Joplin also had a complex love relationship with fellow addict Peggy Caserta, and when Niehaus spotted Joplin using at her California house, it was the last straw. Janis Joplin didn't let another romance setback deter her. She quickly delved into building a new band that was mostly made up of young Canadian musicians, the Full Tilt Boogie Band. In May 1970, Joplin and the band played at a celebration for a well-known biker organization. Her former band, Big Brother, also performed that night. Her former bandmates' reactions to what they witnessed were divided. Sam Andrews subsequently said that she was fading and that he was concerned for her well-being, despite their lead vocalist calling her performance amazing. As it turned out, he was correct to be afraid. Joplin seemed like a light of brightness, but she was tormented on the inside. A devastating letter she addressed to her parents demonstrates the depth of her internal struggle was. Though her parents were caring and supportive, her drug troubles were always a barrier between them. Joplin was always disappointed as a result. Weak as it is, I apologize for being just so plain bad in the family, she said in one of her letters. Somewhere along the line, Janis Joplin had a one-night stand with folk musician Leonard Cohen, who wrote the song Chelsea Hotel No. 2 about her. He wasn't the only well-known songwriter to succumb to Joplin's allure. Jim Morrison, the Doors frontman, was utterly infatuated with her. Joplin, on the other hand, wasn't interested, but that didn't dissuade him. And finally, his devotion took a dark turn. He kept bothering her and, according to some sources, even once followed her to her car and tried to pull her out by her hair. That's when she snapped and cracked a bottle over his head, knocking him out cold. That would ordinarily be enough to make any heart turn cold, but not Morrison's. Janis Joplin briefly toured with her band before entering into the landmark Motor Hotel in Hollywood in August 1970. She was rehearsing and recording her latest album. Additionally, she had started dating Seth Morgan, a 21-year-old college student. Morgan would go on to write a novel. However, in 1970, while studying, he began dealing drugs. Despite spending very little time together, Joplin and Morgan got engaged in September. Morgan only paid Joplin 8 visits, despite the fact that she spent several hours in the studio practicing and recording. Complicating matters, Peggy Caserta remained a fixture in Joplin's life. The two had been pals with an on-again, off-again romance for several years. Caserta was also an addict. In her book published in 1973, she said that she and Joplin had agreed to keep away from each other in April 1970. It was a plan that fell apart when Caserta checked into the Landmark in September. Joplin allegedly went out to Caserta and demanded that she give her pills. The recording studio was where Janis Joplin spent her final days. Mercedes-Benz, a song she recorded in a single take on October 1st, 1970, was her final composition. October 2nd, the day after, was packed with highs and lows. Although she was happy with the recording's progress, she was upset with Morgan for inviting ladies to her house. On the evening of October 3rd, Joplin spent many hours with her organist, Ken Pearson, until they parted ways in the lobby of the hotel where they were both staying. Before going back to her room by herself, she might have made a joke about how afraid she was of the packed with highs and lows. Although she was happy with the recording's progress, she was upset with Morgan for inviting ladies to her house. On the evening of October 3rd, Joplin spent many hours with her organist, Ken Pearson, until they parted ways in the lobby of the hotel where they were both staying. Before going back to her room by herself, she might have made a joke about how afraid she was of the band might leave her. Joplin's close friend and road manager, John Baincook, found her deceased body in her hotel room on the evening of October 4th, 1970. Her age was 27. Although no narcotics were found in her room, authorities concluded her death to be due to an overdose, likely worsened by use of alcohol. What do you believe today's youth are searching for? Sincerity and fun, hey? Are they finding it? I don't know about you, Daddy, but I'm all right. At least I'm having a nice time. Despite not finishing the recordings, Janis Joplin had laid down enough tracks for her final album, Peril, to be released following her death. It went on to be the best-selling record of her career. If you loved this Fact 8 video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more fantastic stories. If you want to say and who we feature next, join our membership program through the link in the description for unique advantages. We are so grateful for your support. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the subsequent one.